I'm Elaine, 32 years old, and I never expected that my birthday would turn into a family battleground. After a grueling week at the accounting firm, I still managed to host my own celebration, complete with decorations and homemade appetizers. Meanwhile, my younger brother, Dylan, strolled in an hour late, bearing an expensive gift he definitely couldn't afford. Mom beamed at him like he had hung the moon dot. As I leaned over to blow out my candles, her words sliced right through me. No, you have always been jealous of your brother. That moment changed everything for me. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment below on where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to stand up for yourself against family who took you for granted, hit that like button and subscribe. Growing up in our modest suburban home in Michigan, the roles were clear from a very early age. I was expected to be the responsible one, the achiever, the one who would always make sensible choices. Dylan, 3 years younger, was the free spirit who needed endless second chances and protection. Our parents never explicitly said they had different standards for us, but their actions spoke volumes. When I was 8, I saved my allowance for 6 months to buy a bicycle. Mom and Dad praised my discipline, but reminded me that financial responsibility was simply expected of me. When Dylan turned 8, they surprised him with a bike twice as expensive as mine because, as Mom explained, he would be too impatient. Save up. This pattern repeated itself throughout our entire childhood. I learned to anticipate it, but that never made it hurt any less. In high school, I maintained a 4.0 GPA while working weekends at the local grocery store. My academic achievements were acknowledged with brief nods and comments like, "Well, school always came easy to you." Meanwhile, when Dylan managed to pull his grades up from D's to C's, our parents threw him a celebration dinner and bought him a new gaming system as a reward. College was where the divide grew even deeper. I attended State University on a partial scholarship and worked 30 hours a week to cover the rest. I graduated with minimal student loans and paid them off within 3 years by living frugally and picking up extra accounting projects. Dylan, however, bounced between 4 different colleges in 5 years, changing majors each time his courses became too demanding. Our parents paid his tuition in full, covered his apartment, and gave him a monthly allowance that actually exceeded my starting salary. "Your brother is finding himself," Mom would explain whenever I questioned this imbalance. "He's an artistic soul. You have always been more practical." Dylan's finding himself phase extended well into his 20s. He tried being a photographer, then a craft beer brewer, followed by a brief stint as a day trader, all of it ending in expensive failures. Each time, our parents would bail him out, dipping into their retirement savings to fund his next venture. When I expressed concern about their financial future, Dad would shrug and say, "Family helps family." Except their definition of help seemed to apply differently to each of us. By 30, I had established myself as a senior accountant at a respected firm, purchased my own modest condo, and built an emergency fund that could cover 6 months of expenses. I rarely asked my parents for anything, not because I didn't need support sometimes, but because I had learned early that my needs were considered optional, while Dylan's were always urgent. The year before my 32nd birthday had been particularly challenging. Our company had taken on several major clients, which meant constant overtime and stress. I had also been helping a junior colleague navigate a difficult audit, essentially doing two jobs for several months. Through it all, I maintained my independence, never once asking my parents for assistance. Dylan, now 29, was still living in an apartment our parents paid for, driving a car they had financed, and consulting on social media marketing without any actual clients. His Instagram showed expensive restaurants, weekend trips, and designer clothes, all while he claimed to be hustling towards success. Last year's birthdays had set the tone for what I should expect. On Dylan's birthday, our parents rented out a restaurant's private room, invited 30 people, and presented him with a collection of high-end gifts. On mine, we had cake at their house after I worked a full day, and they gave me a blender because you are always so practical. I had long accepted that my achievements would never receive the same recognition as Dylan's mere existence. But accepting something does not mean it stops hurting. Each dismissal of my efforts, each extra allowance for his failures, built a wall of resentment brick by brick until it stood so tall. I could barely see over it to remember the times when we had actually been close as siblings. As my 32nd birthday approached, I tried to keep my expectations reasonable. I arranged to take the day off work, a rare luxury given my workload, and decided to host a small gathering at my condo. I invited our parents, Dylan, and a few close friends. I would cook, decorate, and create a warm celebration on my own terms. Perhaps this time, just once, I could be the center of attention on my special day. Little did I know that this birthday would become the breaking point that would force us all to confront the dysfunctional patterns we had been living with for decades. The morning of my birthday began with promise. Sunlight streamed through my kitchen window as I prepared a spread of desserts and finger foods. I had splurged on decorative serving dishes, quality ingredients, and even fresh flowers to make my home feel festive. The night before, I had stayed up until midnight, hanging streamers and arranging a photo display of happy memories from throughout the year, carefully curating moments that celebrated my friendships and achievements. My best friend Marie arrived early to help bring in a beautiful homemade cake. "You should not be cooking for your own birthday," she scolded gently, but she understood when I explained that hosting gave me control over the day. Just once. I want a celebration that does not turn into the Dylan show, I told her as we arranged candles on the dining table. My parents arrived exactly on time. My father was carrying a small gift bag, and my mother immediately asked, "Is your brother here yet?" When I explained that Dylan was running late as usual, she frowned slightly. "I hope he didn't forget. You know how busy he's been with his new business contacts." Those business contacts were, as far as I could tell, other unemployed 20s who spent their days in coffee shops discussing theoretical startups while posting inspirational quotes on LinkedIn. But I bit my tongue and offered my parents drinks instead. An hour into the gathering, with most guests already enjoying their second helping of food, Dylan finally made his entrance. He swept in without apology for his tardiness, carrying an enormous gift box wrapped in expensive paper. "Happy birthday, sis," he announced loudly, drawing all attention to himself. "Wait until you see what I got you. It's absolutely perfect." My mother rushed to take his coat as if he were a visiting dignitary. Dylan, you are so thoughtful. Look at the beautiful gift he brought. Elaine, I smiled tightly, acutely aware that Dylan had never held a job long enough to afford whatever was in that box. The price tag would ultimately trace back to our parents, making it effectively a gift from them to me through him, for which he would receive all the credit. Open it now, my mother insisted, abandoning the conversation she'd been having with my friend from work. Inside the box was a designer handbag, one I had admired months ago while shopping with Mom. It was beautiful, but far too expensive for my practical budget. The fact that Dylan had remembered and chosen it might have been touching if I didn't know the reality behind the gesture. This is very generous, I said carefully. Thank you. Only the best for my big sister, Dylan replied with a wink. I remembered how much you wanted it. My mother beamed. Your brother is so attentive. He always remembers what people like. The comment stung, particularly since I was the one who sent birthday cards to relatives, remembered their children's names, and called our parents weekly. Dylan barely managed to text on holidays. As the evening progressed, the dynamic became increasingly clear. Every conversation somehow turned to Dylan's plans and potential. When my colleague mentioned my recent promotion, my mother nodded distractedly before turning to Dylan to ask about his latest networking opportunity. My father sat quietly, occasionally patting my shoulder, but saving his animated conversations for my brother. The moment that broke me came when Marie brought out the birthday cake. As everyone gathered around and began singing, I noticed my mother whispering something to Dylan, both of them glancing at me. The familiar childhood feeling of being evaluated, dismissed, and found wanting washed over me. When the singing ended and I leaned forward to blow out the candles, my mother put her hand on my arm. What I thought might be a rare moment of maternal affection turned into something else entirely. You know, she whispered just loud enough for those closest to hear. You have always been jealous of your brother. If you could just be more supportive of his journey instead of competing with him, you would be happier. The room seemed to freeze. Marie, standing nearby, inhaled sharply. My colleague looked down at her plate, suddenly fascinated by the frosting design. My father shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing as usual. The candles flickered, waiting for a wish I no longer had the heart to make. In that moment, the accumulation of 32 years of unequal treatment, of dismissed achievements and excused failures, of being the responsible one who was never quite good enough while watching my brother fail upward through life crystallized into a perfect, sharp clarity. I felt something inside me crack. Then let him pay your bills, I said, my voice cutting through the awkward silence. My mother blinked, her hand still resting on my arm. Excuse me. If Dylan is so amazing and I'm just jealous of his brilliant journey, then maybe he should start paying his own bills. And yours too, when you need it. The words came out with a calm I did not feel inside. My mother's face tightened. Elaine, this is not appropriate conversation for your birthday party. Neither was accusing me of jealousy over my birthday cake. But here we are. I gently removed her hand from my arm. Do you know who paid for everything you're eating tonight? Who took the day off work to cook and clean and decorate? Who has never asked you for money since graduating college? Dylan shifted uncomfortably, the smug expression slipping slightly from his face. Come on, sis. Mom didn't mean anything by it. You're making a scene. Am I? Funny how setting boundaries is making a scene, but showing up an hour late to a party is just Dylan being Dylan. My father finally spoke up. His voice let's all calm down and enjoy the cake. Elaine has gone to a lot of trouble for this lovely evening. Thank you for noticing, Dad. It's nice that someone did. I turned back to my mother. Do you want to know something interesting? Last month, when Dylan told you he was this close to landing a major client, that was a lie. He's been telling you that for 2 years. My mother's face flushed. You don't know anything about your brother's business. Actually, I do, because his former roommate, Josh, works at my firm now. Dylan hasn't had a paying client in 18 months. He's been living entirely off your money while pretending to run a business. Dylan stood up abruptly. You had no right to discuss my personal life with Josh. He mentioned it because he was concerned. Because unlike you, some people actually worry about how their actions affect others. One of my friends quietly excused herself to the kitchen. Another checked her watch and murmured something about an early morning. The comfortable gathering was disintegrating around us, but I could not stop the words that had been dammed up for years. Do you know what Mom and Dad got me for Christmas last year? I asked Dylan directly. A $50 gift card to an office supply store. Do you know what? They paid off your $5,000 credit card bill. The one you ran up buying those designer sneakers and that weekend in Vegas. That is completely different, my mother interjected. Your brother was going through a difficult time after his breakup with Amanda, and when I went through my divorce 3 years ago, when Jack left me for his coworker and I had to pay all the legal fees myself, what difficult time allowance did I get then? My father looked genuinely surprised. We offered to help, but you said you had it covered because that's what you raised me to do. To handle things myself, to be responsible, to never expect handouts. Meanwhile, Dylan gets bailed out for every poor decision he makes. My mother's voice turned cold. This is exactly the kind of jealousy I was talking about. Your brother has special talents that need nurturing. You have always been naturally capable. Capable is not the same as invulnerable, Mom. Being responsible does not mean I never needed support. Asterisk Dylan, sensing the tide turning against him, tried a new approach. Elaine, I appreciate everything you do. You're amazing, but we're just different people with different paths. Different path. Your path has been lined with safety nets and second chances. Mine has been do it right the first time or deal with the consequences yourself. My mother stood up, gathering her purse. I will not sit here and listen to you attack your brother on your birthday of all days. If you cannot appreciate the family that loves you and supports you, then perhaps we should leave. Supports me. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. When was the last time either of you supported any choice I made when I chose accounting instead of law school? Dad didn't speak to me for a week. When I bought my condo in this neighborhood instead of the one you preferred, Mom told everyone I was settling. Every achievement I've had has been minimized, while Dylan's smallest efforts are celebrated like he cured cancer. The remaining guests were now openly uncomfortable, some making discreet exits with apologetic glances in my direction. Marie stood firmly beside me, her presence a silent vote of confidence. My mother gathered her coat, her face rigid with anger. When you have calmed down and are ready to apologize to your brother, we can discuss this like adults. I am discussing it like an adult. That's the problem. For once, I'm not swallowing my feelings to keep the peace. For once. I'm not pretending everything is fine when it hasn't been fine for years. As my parents prepared to leave, my mother delivered her parting shot. I suppose this tantrum is what we should expect. You always did struggle with emotional regulation. Remember when you didn't make the debate team in 10th grade and locked yourself in your room for days? Dylan never had those kinds of outbursts. That was the final straw. Dylan never had those outbursts because Dylan never tried for anything challenging enough to risk failure. And for the record, I locked myself in my room because that was the same week I found out my boyfriend was cheating on me. And neither of you even noticed I was upset until I missed dinner. My father looked stricken, a flash of recognition crossing his face. My mother merely pursed her lips and guided Dylan toward the door. Come on, son. Let your sister have some space to collect herself. Dylan hesitated, looking torn between his usual allegiance to our mother and some new uncomfortable awareness. I never meant to just go, I said, suddenly exhausted. Enjoy your free apartment and your endless chances. The bank of mom and dad is always open for you. After they left, Marie and my 2 remaining friends helped clean up in silence. The beautiful cake sat mostly uneaten. The candles had been removed. The frosting message "Happy Birthday" Elaine was slightly smudged where someone had absently run a finger through it. I am so sorry, I said to them. That was not how I wanted this evening to go. Marie hugged me tightly. Don't you apologize? That was 30 years overdue. When everyone had gone and I was alone in my condo, surrounded by the remnants of my ruined birthday, I finally allowed myself to cry. The drive home from my own party was surreal. I hadn't actually gone anywhere, but emotionally I had traveled miles. As I sat in my parked car in the garage of my own building, tears streaming down my face, I felt simultaneously lighter and heavier than I had in years. The weight of unspoken truths had lifted, only to be replaced by the burden of wondering what would happen next. Rain began to patter against the windshield, matching the rhythm of my thoughts as they tumbled over one another. Memories flooded back now, viewed through a lens cleared of the fog of family obligation. I remembered my high school graduation, where my parents had left early because Dylan, then a freshman, had a minor role in a school play the same evening. He needs us there, Mom had explained. You understand. You're so I recalled my college graduation ceremony, sitting alone because my family was late. They had arrived just as my name was called, missing my honors recognition because Dylan had insisted on stopping for breakfast at his favorite restaurant 2 hours away from campus. The time I landed my first professional accounting job, calling home excitedly only to have the conversation cut short because Dylan was having a crisis over a failed relationship. My promotion to senior accountant announced during a family dinner that quickly became focused on Dylan's latest business idea, my 30th birthday, which had been a rushed affair because it fell the same weekend as one of Dylan's friends' destination weddings, which our parents attended instead. Each memory carried the same message. Dylan's needs, wants, and even whims would always take precedence over my most significant life events. As the rain intensified, a text message illuminated my phone screen. It was from my mother. I hope you are pleased with yourself. Dylan is very upset by your outbursts. Call me when you are ready to apologize. No concern for my feelings, no acknowledgement of the pain behind my words, just the expectation that I would, as always, be the one to smooth things over. A second text followed. This one from Dylan.Hey. Sis, sorry about tonight. You know how mom gets, hope you're still enjoying your BDE. The casual tone, the subtle shifting of blame to our mother rather than accepting his role, the misspelled words as if taking the time to write properly was too much effort. All of it crystallized something for me. This wasn't just about tonight. This was about a lifetime of patterns that would continue unless something changed. I scrolled through my phone to a photo taken last Christmas, showing Dylan proudly holding up the keys to his apartment, the luxury building downtown that I knew charged at least $3,000 a month for its smallest units, an amount Dylan could not possibly afford on his non-existent income. With sudden, stark clarity, I realized that I had been enabling this dysfunction just as much as my parents had, by always being the responsible one, by never making waves, by accepting the unequal treatment as simply how things were. I had allowed the situation to continue worse. I had been directly subsidizing Dylan's lifestyle in ways I hadn't fully acknowledged. His Netflix and Spotify accounts were on my family plan. I had added him to my cell phone family plan. 3 years ago, when he was just getting his business started and needed to save money temporarily, I had set up automatic payments for his utility bills last winter when he complained about forgetting due dates and getting hit with late fees. All these small helps had become permanent arrangements that he took for granted, part of the invisible support system that kept him comfortable in his irresponsibility. Opening my laptop, I logged into my bank account and began reviewing automatic payments. The evidence was worse than I'd imagined. Beyond the subscriptions and phone bill, I discovered I had been paying for his renter's insurance after setting it up temporarily 2 years ago. My credit card showed regular charges from food delivery services to his address services I authorized when he was recovering from a minor outpatient procedure 18 months ago. But that had never been discontinued. As I dug deeper, the full picture emerged of how my brother had become financially entangled in my life, taking advantage of my organizational skills and reliability. Each small expense on its own had seemed manageable, a minor help for family. Together, they represented nearly $600 monthly that I was essentially gifting to someone who showed no appreciation for it. A notification popped up on my email from my father with the subject line, "Your mother is very upset." I closed it without reading. For once, I would not be the one to make peace at the expense of my own dignity. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and began researching family psychology and enabling behaviors. Article after article described situations eerily similar to mine. The responsible sibling who becomes trapped in a caretaker role, the parents who enable one child's dependence while expecting independence from another, the golden child syndrome. It was as if these psychologists had been observing my family for years. Marie called around midnight, checking in on me. "How are you holding up?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "I'm having some realizations," I replied, staring at my screen full of open tabs about financial boundaries and family dynamics. Like what? Like I have been enabling my brother just as much as my parents have. And it stops now. "What are you going to do?" Marie asked, a note of worry in her voice. "Setto. Jito. Boundaries. Real ones. And the first step is cutting the financial ties. We talked for another hour, Marie offering perspective as someone who had known me since college. She reminded me of instances where I'd downplayed my resentment, times when I'd made excuses for Dylan's behavior, occasions when I'd stepped in to solve problems he'd created for himself. You deserve better, she said finally. And honestly, so does Dylan. He'll never grow up if everyone keeps treating him like a child. After we hung up, I made a list of every financial connection between Dylan and myself, from the smallest subscription to the largest recurring payment. Beside each item, I wrote out a plan for disconnection. Some were simple cancellations, others would require conversations with service providers, a few would mean finding replacement services for myself to avoid disruption to my own life. By the time dawn broke, casting golden light across my kitchen table covered in notes and plans, I had made my decision. This was not about punishment or revenge. It was about finally treating both Dylan and myself as the adults we were supposed to be. It was about refusing to participate any longer in a family system that had been slowly drowning both of us, just in different ways. I would be kind but firm. I would explain my actions clearly. I would offer support in the form of information and guidance if asked, but no longer in the form of money or services. I would love my brother enough to let him face the consequences of his choices. And I would love myself enough to stop sacrificing my financial security on the altar of family peace. As I showered and prepared for work, a strange sense of calm settled over me. For the first time in years, perhaps in my entire adult life, I felt truly in control of my relationship with my family. Whatever happened next, it would be on new terms that included respect for my boundaries and acknowledgement of my worth. The journey would not be easy. Decades of established patterns do not change overnight. But as I closed my apartment door behind me and headed for the office, I knew that the first step had already been taken. The old Elaine, the one who swallowed her feelings and paid the bills without complaint, had blown out her candles for the last time. Bills do not pay themselves. That simple truth was the catalyst for changes none of us could have imagined. In standing firm on that reality, I helped my family face others as well painful but necessary if we were to grow beyond the limitations we'd placed on ourselves and each other. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took you for granted? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Remember to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories about personal growth through challenging situations, and share this with someone who might need encouragement to stand up for themselves. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the most healing relationships.